Hello there, I'm G, and this is Kingdom Rush Frontiers for the iOS. You can get it for both iPad and iPhone, but I highly recommend you play it on the iPad version I've got here, because this game can get a tad hectic, and I imagine playing it on that little screen will be a little bit overwhelming. But what is it? Well, if you can't tell already, it is a tower defense game. And I know what you might be thinking. Why is he covering a tower defense game? Those things are a dime a dozen. Well, you see, this one is really, really good. I mean, seriously, I have wasted probably about 20 plus hours on this over the past couple of days. And I've not even finished it yet. So, what makes it unique? Kinda nothing, really. It doesn't do anything I haven't seen in other tower defense games, but it just does everything so much better than the rest. And the best way to show that is to just play the game. So let's get in here, shall we? I can build a tower in any of these slots. This is about midway into the game, I think. This is about when stuff started really getting interesting for me. Yeah, I can build anywhere in these little plots with the T on them. You can build one of 4 different tower types. You have your archer tower, which is your standard, fast-firing projectile attack that can hit aerial and ground units. You have your magic tower, which is much slower, but hits for a lot harder. And there are certain enemies that have physical armor that prevents them from taking damage from your archery towers, so you'll have to use magic on them instead. You've got your Bombard Tower, which is your standard area of effect blast, and then you have my favourite, the Militia Barracks. And what these are, this is this game's equivalent of the tower that slows enemies down. Instead of having like an area of effect attack, it creates a group of soldiers which you can move around, and they will engage one unit each and keep them in their place and attack them. So let's build. This is a great place for one of these bombardment towers because you can take full use of the full curve of the path. So let's have one there. I always like to have a military barracks right near my my base, as it were, which is these blue flags at the bottom. And obviously you're trying to prevent the enemies from getting to there, and every time they do, health goes down a bit. You get 20 health points, which is not very much in the grand scheme of things. Usually if you won't let one enemy through, it means your defensive line has crumbled and you're about to lose. So hopefully that won't happen here, but it's a hard game, really it is. I'm much further on in the game, but this stage is still quite challenging. Let's have another militia barracks here. I like putting an archery tower here because then they get a few free shots at the top lane, but also they can defend the lower lane. And as they upgrade, I'll be able to cover the full eastern lane there. As you can see, it kind of only covers about 2/3 of it right now, so an enemy could like slip underneath that, but we'll deal with that soon enough. So that's there. I really like putting an archery tower here, and you'll find out why later. And I also... what else can I have here? Well, obviously a military barracks there. So these 3 soldiers, you can't control them directly as such. You set a rally point, which will get them to all move to that position. And if you're lucky, they'll fight the enemy there that you want them to fight. But the AI is not that great, so sometimes they won't, which is annoying. One thing you learn very quickly in this game is that upgrading is vitally important. The amount of attack boost that you get from upgrading a tower is significantly more than you get from just building another of the same tower. So when I first started playing this game, my temptation was to just build like everything in all these slots, like just have hundreds of really weak towers, and it doesn't work like that. When you upgrade a tower, it usually doubles the attack and defense values. Sorry, attack and... it gets a lot better is what I'm getting at. So generally, on your early goings, it's good to upgrade your militia. See, this is a really good place to have these guys, because it means if someone gets through my line, there's one final line of defense, but also, if they desperately need help up there, I've got just enough area of effect to move those guys up there and support the rest of the troops. So a lot of this game is learning little tricks like that, trying to get the most efficient use of your towers, so you can have just a couple of really highly upgraded ones rather than a couple of weak ones, and we need one more tower somewhere. Actually, no, we need to invest in upgrading stuff. So the archery tower gets progressively more range as you upgrade it. There are 3 levels of upgrade for standard towers, and once you get to that 3rd level, you can then evolve them into one of 2 different forms, and from there you get to invest in a sort of skill.
They won't see me coming.
You'll see. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. I think we're all ready now. We've got 125 gold left for our starting reserves, but I don't think that's enough to upgrade in anything. Ah, no, we can give these guys a little upgrade. Okay, let's go. I should have probably explained. This is my hero, this lady here. We'll get more onto that after I finish this level, if I survive. But basically, they're the only unit you can move around, sort of, as if it was an RTS. And they'll have different abilities depending on which hero you choose. Mirage is a sort of ranged burst character, I guess. So she doesn't do much damage over time, but she has these abilities that allow her to do like a humongous backstab attack or something like that that has an insta-kill chance. So she's good at taking out like really big enemies very quickly. But she doesn't do so well against hordes of much weaker enemies because she just doesn't have that DPS. That's kind of why I like this game. It has that kind of depth to it, that kind of MMO like, oh, this attack speed, this attack value. They're really upfront with how powerful all your units are. Like, I can select each of these soldiers and see exactly how much health they have left, how much damage they do, what their armor is, how long it takes for them to respawn, and stuff like that. It's really good. I wish more tower games would do that. Actually, no, I don't, because then I just play tower defense games all day, and it's bad enough I've got this one. Okay, I've got enough for another upgrade. What should it be? If I upgrade this one, it can defend both lanes, so that's a smart upgrade. And now it's level 3, I can turn it into either a tribal axe thrower or a crossbow fort. And once I've got enough money, we shall go into what those do. I'll upgrade these guys, they could do with a bit more strength. And see, this place can now either become an Assassin's Guild or a Knights Templar Temple. There's lots of different enemy unit types with different stats, like these Savage Warriors have lots of health and lots of attack, but no armor. But they can be quite a challenge because they do take quite a lot of beating. When they come down in hordes along with their tribal elders that give them all kinds of buffs, it's scary stuff. Which is why the tribal axe throwers are very useful. They have an ability that nullifies any buffs on enemies, so in stages like this where you know you're going to be fighting those kinds of guys, they're vitally important. It's kind of one of the downsides of this game though, because it kind of relies on you knowing beforehand what you're going to be facing, which, you know, you don't until you lose at it. So, I guess it's kind of Dark Souls-y that you kind of have to lose a lot at it to figure out what you're supposed to do, which, you know, some people don't like that. I generally don't either, but I think the mechanics of this game are so strong it didn't really matter to me. One of the more interesting things in this game is lots of stages have different gimmicks, like you'll see this alien spaceship up here, and every now and then, like little facehuggers will come out and try and infest your troops, and if you don't kill them quickly enough, they will then burst and turn into like a xenomorph-like creature.
Let's dance.
Which is bad, because xenomorphs pretty mean. This game is quite fragrant with its usage of third-party IPs, let's say. I can use one of my emergency abilities here. That one will summon 2 extra troops, and that one will rain down some fire. They have different cooldowns, and you can invest points in those abilities to make them better. At the moment I put all my points into this reinforcements ability, so my reinforcements are quite strong, and it cools down incredibly quickly. I use it a lot because it's very useful, so, you know, if I see some guys breaking through the line, I can, like, place 2 there, and, hey, they can keep them busy while my towers wear them down. Oh dear, my line is completely broken down there. It's not looking good. You guys, get down there, help out. Ideally, I don't really want anyone getting down to my last line there. Ooh, I've got enough for another upgrade, though. Reinforce there. Oh, it's an aerial wave next, so best upgrade my towers. Let's go with tribal axe throwers, so I can because I played this stage before, I know from that northern path there's going to be a lot of enemies that have buffs, and, you know, want to get rid of those buffs. So now it's at its ultimate level, I can put points into one of its 2 abilities. Well, you can put points in both, but, you know, it's expensive to do that. So this one's got the Totem of Spirits. That's an area of effecting that will cancel out enemy buffs, which of course is very useful. And the Totem of Weakness, which drastically lowers an enemy's defense. Again, very useful. Of course, which one you want to use depends on what kind of enemies you're going to face in that level. So like in this one, I most definitely want a Totem of Spirits. Sadly, you can't decide where it puts the totem. It'll just randomly go like, oh, that's good enough. It's a little irritating sometimes, because it will place the totems in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, well, it's kind of a spellcaster over here, it's kind of wrecking my dudes. I'd like you to have put it there, but whatever. Let's start the next wave early. This will give me a few extra bits of gold, which is nice. But of course, it's a nice little risk reward as well. If you start it before you're actually ready, because you're too greedy, you can end up screwing yourself over. Oh, Xenomorphs are spawning. Got reinforcements there, and try and get rid of them quick. Ah, yeah, we killed them before any of them hatched. Move these guys back down. Let's fire there. Moving your hero around means you always have something to do, which I think is a nice twist. One of the things I've not liked about tower defense games in the past is, you know, once you've upgraded all your towers, it kind of feels like you just sit there and wait for stuff to happen, which is not that fun. Okay, let's turn these guys into my favourite type of troops, the Assassin's Guild. These guys do not do quite as much damage over time as the Knights Templar, nor do they have the same level of health. But they have lots of really nice burst damage and support abilities, my favourite of which is Pickpocket. Put 2 points into that. Now every time they attack someone, they have a certain chance of giving me money, and, you know, against lots of enemies, I can generate money very, very quickly, which is extremely useful if you want these other abilities, like a sneak attack and counter attack. Max level counter attack means they have like a 70% chance of just ignoring damage and dealing a massive amount of burst in response. So they're basically like a troop version of my hero here, which is nice. Once I've got enough money, I'll turn these guys into a Knights Templar, which are kind of the opposite. They don't do much burst, but they've got some damage over time abilities, and they have crazy amounts of health. They also have a special ability. Let's make sure we get rid of those, shall we? They have a special ability which means if they would die, they might just not die instead, which is quite good when you desperately need someone to hold the line. Which means I'll probably turn these guys at the bottom here into Knights Templar at some point as well. You know, just so I know that last line will always hold. So here's a shaman up here, this guy, Earth Shaman. I can't remember what that one does particularly, but in general, the shamans will make anyone that's nearby incredibly hard to kill. And they also get their own buff, like there's an orange one in there who has crazy amounts of health regeneration and also gives it to his buddies. Which is why, of course, these tribal axe throwers incredibly important. Because without their totems, like, those guys would be unkillable. You wouldn't be able to do enough damage to kill them before they just heal it all back because of their buff. See, now I'm getting crazy amounts of money thanks to my assassins, so I'll turn this into a crossbow fort. And while it attacks a lot faster than the tribal axe throwers, it doesn't do quite as much damage, so it's better for like those swarming low-life enemies rather than like the big, powerful, slow ones. Its two abilities are Barrage. Barrage, so that's basically a burst damage move, but the good thing about it is if it kills an enemy, but it hasn't done its full like damage yet, it'll then move the damage onto an enemy next to it. So, again, very good against swarming enemies. But this is even better. Falconer increases the range of the crossbow, increases the range of any nearby towers, and gives it a critical hit chance. So it's always good to try and get the first level of all these abilities. And thankfully, after you buy the first version of that ability, it gets slightly cheaper to buy the next one, which is nice. In most cases, anyway, that varies. Let's have those guys there. Yeah, these flying enemies are annoying. Once you kill them, they then turn into a different type of flying enemy that runs very, very quickly to your base, which is not nice. Luckily, I have an upgrade to my reinforcements that gives them a ranged attack. Previously, they did not have that, so I can have them take it out. These spider guys are pretty annoying too. They create lots of little spiderlings, and although the spiderlings are very easy to kill, if they outnumber your troops, they'll just run right past them because there's not enough troops to handle it. Let's turn these guys into Knights Templar. Oh no, I think that last one's going to get through. Yeah, they got through. So I took 1 damage there. So it's not so bad. These guys' upgrades, you can get toughness, increases their health, get damage over time ability, and Holy Grail, which just makes them not die. What should I upgrade next? I haven't upgraded my little bombard tower yet. I don't really like the base version of the bombardment tower very much. I don't find it that useful, but its evolutions, one of which is a giant mech, which is of course I'm all for in any video game, and the other of which is this giant hammer that just does so much damage over a huge radius. It's crazy. And it's great on this stage because there's so many enemies coming down that path. If I was smart, I'd have put it there, but I'd have to spend an extra 100 gold to dig out all the debris there before I can build the tower, so it's, you know, you have to weigh that up. It would have put me at a disadvantage early game, but now it would be far more useful. So, you know, checks and balances. Let's give them counterattack and sneak attack. That should make them far more formidable. Harder to kill. Might give these guys barrage next. Actually no, totem of weakness will be good. Be helpful for taking out all those giant gorillas. There we go. Totem of weakness. Oh god, 3 waves of flying enemies coming next. Still haven't got rid of all these guys. I really don't like how the AI handles ranged enemies. They'll just sit there and take damage from them. You have to then go like, no, attack those guys. They're bad. They're killing you. Get rid of them. But yeah, that's probably one of the very few complaints I have about this game. I just enjoy it so much. I've done this stage like tons of times at this point, but I'm still loving it. This is still really, really fun. And I think it is because you always have something to do. There's no passiveness to it. It's partly that here and partly because there's so many upgrades, and that just adds so many layers of strategy that's missing from a lot of other similar games. Where they're just like, you know, upgrade your tower and that's it. You're not making decisions on how that tower evolves or, you know, stuff like that. Sorry if I'm not particularly eloquent right now. This game kind of requires a lot of attention. Although not so much during these aerial attacks because, you know, you just watch them all die and watch your numbers go up and upgrade your tower. So these guys have barrage now, which hopefully they'll use in a sec. Basically turns them into a giant machine gun. Nah, they're out of range. There we go. What next? Maybe worth building a new tower there. Actually, let's get a mage tower all up in this. I think there will be a good place for a mage tower. Yeah. Mage towers don't have much range, so you really want to take advantage of those corners where they'll be able to hit a lot of stuff. And I think on this level we've just unlocked the second mage tower upgrade. You don't start off with all the upgrades, unfortunately. You have to gradually progress through the game and it'll be like, now you can make this kind of tower. I think there's only one more type at this point in the game that you don't have, which unfortunately is the mecha, which is a stupendous upgrade because it's a mecha. Also, it's just incredibly useful. Let's try and soften up those guys. Oh god, they didn't take much, did they? So yeah, I don't have the mech upgrade for this, but I can turn it into a dwarf, which is the giant area of effect hammer. But, it actually does less damage than the howitzer that it's currently as, but it'll actually damage its entire radius rather than just where the shot lands, which is very useful against swarming enemies. Let's upgrade this mage tower. There we go. So Mage Tower can either be a Necromancer Tower or an Archmage Tower. For this one, it's going to be Necromancer. And while the tower itself isn't as strong as the Archmage Tower, it has the ability to resurrect fallen enemies as these skeletons, essentially giving you lots of free troops. Which is very useful on bits like this, where there's just so goddamn many enemies attacking at once. It's 2 upgrades. One is Pestilence, which is a nice damage over time ability, and the Death Rider, which is like one really powerful troop that gives a buff to any nearby skeletons, which is very, very useful. Let's put some reinforcements there. You see, if I was smart, I might have put a militia barracks here where this axe throw is. That would mean I could move troops from this this lane over here to this one, depending on where enemies are coming from. But then there'd be no one to deal with these parasites over there, so you know you have to think pretty carefully about that stuff. Weaken that. Oh dear, they're really breaking through over there. I need some more upgrades for my assassins. Let's give them high counterattack. So now they have like a 70% chance of just ignoring damage and responding with a lot of damage in kind. We're at wave 11 of 15, so we should be able to get through this. Let's give myself a Death Rider. I love this guy. So now on my little skeleton army, which is not that powerful to be honest, but they're good at slowing down enemies, has a nice little buff to it. And I now have an extra troop that I can move around. And all the while, this tower is still doing its thing. Which is a fair amount of damage, 70, that's not too bad. Not one of those parasites hatched, but oh, 2 of them. Yeah, thankfully my Necromancer Tower is quite powerful. Takes care of them real quickish. What else can I do? Let's increase the range of this thing so it can hit that middle lane a bit better. Oh crap, look! Parasite got through. That's bad. See, I was not paying attention there, and that's coming back to bite me. Ooh, that was close. Yeah, all my knights died. Have any upgrades? No wonder. Let's give them the Holy Grail upgrade twice. Now they have like a 30% chance of not dying when they should. What next? Where's my hero? Ah, yeah, she needs to be there. Well, this gorilla's causing me some big amounts of trouble. Let's give them some more backstab. That way they can burst down those giant gorillas real quick.
Let's dance. It's showtime.
So you can easily see how stuff can get a tad overwhelming in this game. And this is one of the smaller stages. A lot of the later ones are far less straightforward. Like one I'm currently on now actually has 2 lanes, and it lets you use 2 different heroes. And you have to decide, like, well, which lane am I going to focus all my gold on? It actually gives you a lot of towers starting off there, which is the gimmick of that stage. But it's some unique dwarven towers that you don't get in the rest of the game. So you kind of have to learn a new tower type, even though you don't actually have access to that tower for the rest of the game, as far as I know. It's interesting, you know. It's a lot of effort put in on these stages. There's different ways to play them as well. This is just the basic version of this stage. There is, I believe, an iron version and a challenge version. And the challenge version has some kind of weird, like, extra gimmick to it, like, oh, you can't use heroes, or you can only use this type of tower, or something like that. Which can make that quite interesting. And then the iron version, I could be getting the 2 confused, but there is one version that's just a harder version of this, and then there's one version that has extra requirements, which, you know, it adds a lot of extra longevity to this game, and I've not really done any of those stages. I've just been playing it through normally, and yeah, I've spent Far too many hours playing this thing. Oh god, too much money. Should always be spending. There we go. Got a maxed out Necromancer Tower now. Maxed out Assassins. Maxed out that tower. These guys are fine for now. Let's give more Tome of Weakness. If I was smart, I would have upgraded that tower a bit sooner. It's ready for its final level. Oh, these flying units are really cutting me up. There we go, now I've got some real stuff. So this thing every now and then will just hammer down and just any enemy nearby takes a fair bit of damage. It's two upgrades, one is a burst damage ability, and the other is an area of effect, which I very, very much like. It's an area of effect burn, so anyone who's nearby when it hammers down and that ability procs will take a nasty bit of damage over time. Let's get my hero to go defend this lane over here. It's getting a little bit too messy. And not too fond of the core drill ability on this. I don't see it proc very often or score many kills, so I tend to just skip it. But in general, it's best to try and get the first level of every ability that's available. Because just because one procs doesn't mean the other's not also going to proc at the same time, so overall you're getting more benefit from having one of everything than you are one ability that's put up to max. Oh, we're nearing the end here. I suppose at this point you've probably got a fair idea of what this game is, but at the same time, I do not want to give up. I want to try and finish this thing. And because I've only taken one damage point, I may get enough to get 3 stars. I don't know if I've got 3 stars on this stage yet. And you'll see in a moment why getting stars is significant. I don't think I'm going to win. Yeah, stuff is not going too great right now. Yeah, this game's hard. This game's really hard. I've gone from thinking I might be able to get a perfect to it looking very like I'm going to lose in the space of a couple of seconds. Yeah, I think this is over. I was just not paying enough attention there. Wow. Well, I guess you got the full spectrum of what this game is like. Yeah, it's over. I'm dead. Well, okay. The one upside to losing is you do get to keep any experience your hero earned during that level, which doesn't matter to me because my hero's already max level, so and you also get to keep any gems. And what gems are this currency you can spend on these one-use items. Like this one lets you start off with a lot more gold, that one lets you freeze enemies, that one destroys stuff. I tend not to use these because I don't like consumable items in games generally. Also because it feeds into their microtransaction system. Because of course you can pay for gems. Yeah, that's less said about that the better. I know you have to do it in these systems, but so yeah, this is the world map. You can see all the stages I've done so far. Generally managed to 3-star most of the early ones after a couple of tries. Oh, what else can we look at here? So if I select a stage, I haven't finished that one 3 stars yet. Yeah, once you finish at 3 stars, you unlock the heroic version, which is the one with a slightly higher challenge. It is basically the same thing, just more enemies and such like. And then you got the iron version. So on this one, there'll be one super wave. I can only take 1 damage. I can only have a maximum of level 3 upgrades, and no artillery or archer towers. So that's pretty severe. That means only magic and militia, and magic is not that useful on stages where you're fighting the tribal enemies, because most enemies on those levels don't have any armor resistance, so what's the point in using magic? So we've got the hero screen here. something I don't really like about this bit. These first 3 heroes here are free, they're in the game already. But if you want the rest of them, well, you have to pay money, and that's fine if they were like 69p or something, which, you know, that's not too much to ask for a character in a game. But they're not. Like, the cheapest one is £2, which is, you know, I think this game is like £3 as it is, so you're approaching the actual cost of the game at that point. And then this end one here, this dragon, is £5. That's just going overboard. It's a shame, because playing as these 3 different characters is really fun, but you level them out really quickly, and then it's like, where do you go from there? Like, I want to try some new abilities out. It's a minor complaint. This game, on the whole, is absolutely stellar, so, you know, can't always be perfect. Yeah, so I've got this guy here he's kind of like the Knights Templar equivalent of the champion characters, so he doesn't do much burst damage, but he does good damage over time and is very formidable in terms of just taking damage. He's your tank, basically. The Mirage, which is the assassin, and I quite like this guy, the Beastmaster. He doesn't do much of either of those things. He doesn't do much burst or damage over time, but he can summon other creatures to help him out and keep enemies busy, which is very useful on stages where you just get overwhelmed by large numbers of weak enemies. And I think the last thing is this upgrade room. This is where you can spend the stars that you earn from completing stages on little minor upgrades for your towers. I generally quite like these top tier upgrades, so I tend to spend my points trying to get to that top rather than spreading the points over evenly, but you can customize it to whatever suits your play style. The top tier stuff tends to be really awesome though, like a marksman have a chance of shooting twice instead of once, so double damage. Soldiers regenerate health in combat, which is, you know, that's good if you're against an enemy that can't deal enough damage to wear them down. And Recursive Bow gives reinforcements ranged attack, which is super useful if you are against a flying wave of enemies. Yeah, that's been Kingdom Rush Frontiers. Don't think there's anything more to say about that. Like I said, it's like £3 on the App Store, more than worth it. There's tens of hours of entertainment you can get out of this thing. It is probably the best tower defense game I've ever played, and that's not saying very much. I've not played a huge range of them, but you know, it's a really solid game. Doesn't do anything I haven't seen elsewhere, but just does everything so goddamn well. Highly, highly recommended. It is the sequel to a different game, which is just called Kingdom Rush, I think. But the general perception is this game is far better. Not to say Kingdom Rush wasn't good, it's just this game has more. So if you're going to get one of those 2 games, get this one. Or get both and just never get any work done again. Anyway, that's been Kingdom Rush Frontiers. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.